Okay, so we're on the bow of the boat, starting right at the pointy end. We've got a 25 kilo delta anchor with 80 meters of 10mm chain on there. And you'll also see on this side, possibly, the bowsprit that takes the Jenica, and then this attachment here, which takes the second forestay, the removable forestay, so you can hank on a second genoa and fly with two genoas if you're doing long downwind passages, such as crossing to the Canaries and across the Caribbean. Coming back, we have a substantial cleat. We have two spinnaker poles. This one is an extendable lighter weight one, which I tend to use when we're poling out the head sail. And then on the other side you've got the traditional solid big boy. So again, if you're doing long downwind sails with two head sails, then you've got two spinnaker poles to pole them out on. We have a large locker here. I suppose originally it would have been a sail locker. We now use it to house extra jerry cans of water if we need to carry a lot of water, the snubber, etc. And then, so you don't have to break your back pulling up the anchor chain, we have a Loughran's Tigris windlass, which does a very good job at pulling it up. I have to say, this setup for anchoring has never let us down, and we anchor a lot. The furling line on the Genoa is Dyneema. I think it's 2 years old. We last replaced it, yes, 2 years ago. So Dyneema furling line there. The Genoa sheets are 3 years old and rather over specified. I think I got carried away there. Heading back, you've got a large hatch which opens up into the forward cabin. We have 3 dorades for ventilation, something you don't see on modern boats. Stepping back here, this is a second forestay, removable forestay, so it normally clips on that attachment that I showed you earlier at the front. At the mast, we've got mast steps to take you part way up the mast. Attachment for the spinnaker pole. We have 2 spinnaker halyards, spinnaker pole up. There's a foredeck light up there which you may be able to see, radar reflector. The sail bag was new in 2017, I think. Check that on the website. And coming back, you can see the deck, which is the cork, Marine Deck 2000 cork epoxy mix. Another big ventilation hatch which goes into the main saloon, and behind that is where we carry our life raft. It's an 8-man life raft. As I mentioned on the website, it is due for a service. It is overdue a service, in fact. The mainsail has got its slab reefing system. The single lines all run back to the cockpit. There are 3 reefs in it, so you're pretty much geared up for whatever bad weather comes your way. We also have a storm jib which hanks onto the removable forestay, which looks like it has been out of the bag once because I used it once. The Genoa halyard and the main halyard are also Dyneema, are also new 18 months ago. All the lines lead back to the cockpit, with the exception of the Genoa halyard, because we only take that up and down once a year. Genoa. The UV sunstrip was replaced in 2017, I think. Just check the website for that. There's several years life left in this sail, probably 10. have Dyneema soft shackles on the sail as well. So the mainsail we can't get up because we can't get the boat head to wind as we're tied to the dock. Let's see what we can show you in here. So the sail goes up very easily because it, instead of having sliders in the mast, it has these cars, Rutgerson cars. Very easy to hoist. As I said on the website, the mainsail has probably got 3 more seasons life in it if you're sailing in the Med. If you're going to take the boat across the Atlantic, then I would suggest getting a new mainsail made now. We had a quote, I think, for €2,200 for a new mainsail, but I think that price could be reduced because these cars, which cost about €90 each, could all be reused. It's quite a saving there. On the reefing lines we have low friction rings. It's a very safe, solid solution. Okay, walking back. Bit of a cat's cradle of jumping over. I tend to fasten the fenders onto the rail for the winter so we're not stretching all the stanchions and the safety lines. There's a midships cleat. We keep a boat hook up here. The main block for the main sheet and traveller. There's quite a lot of purchase on there. We have a solid windscreen, which is fantastic. Looks very similar to a Halberg Rassi, and then with the canvas spray hood over the top of it. Stepping back down here. So if I look forwards again now, give you an idea of what she looks like. Okay, for walking aft, we're currently going down the starboard side because that's the sunny side. Towards the back here you can see the wind generator, which in about 14 knots of wind throws out about 5 amps of power. Just below that's a crane for the outboard if we're lifting it on board to store it. And on top of the bimini there are 2 175 watt solar panels. We have lots of fenders all deployed for the winter, including the big one that goes on the back. And on the port side, high up, we have twin backstays, and the port one is isolated because it also acts as the SSB long range radio antenna, but it needs reconnecting, so we don't use it. So I took the aerial off so there's no accidental power going up there. Up here we have the B&G radar, B&G 3G radar it is. It was new earlier this year, early in 2020. It's fantastic. Just below the radar we've got a big spotlight that you can light up the mainsail from the helm. Very useful if you're putting reefs in at night or you need another boat to see you and you're not sure he has. And then up on the Christmas tree above the radar we've got an emergency VHF radio, aerial, Wi-Fi booster, high gain aerial, the aerial for the AIS, and Navtex Weatherfax, which is currently disconnected as well because we never use it. The life raft has a hydrostatic release on it, so should you go over, it will release itself and come to your rescue. On the boom, on both sides of the boom, we have preventer lines rigged here, which detach off here and connect to preventer lines that run down the side of the boat and back to the cockpit. You can't see them because I've taken them off for the winter, but it does mean that when you're running downwind, you can be fairly safe in trying to prevent that crash jibe. So let's step back into the cockpit. Okay, back at the helm position now. So here I have a command mic which is connected to the main VHF radio downstairs, but you can send and receive messages or voice calls on there. Standard instruments, we've got wind, speed, depth, and then we have an ST60 graphic display here which we use for navigation. I've just set up a temporary course on the laptop downstairs, and that passes the information up here, and we use this rolling road. So what that is telling me is what my bearing to my waypoint is, how far it is to the waypoint, what my cross track error is, so how much to the left or right of my course I am. The standard compass, and then down below here we've got the controls head for the autopilot. This is, I think, 4 years old, as is the computer that it's connected to. There's a speaker which can connect to the VHF radio. We don't have it connected at the moment. Then down here, got oil pressure, engine temperature, engine electric amps output from the alternator, rev counter, and a big reminder to me not to start the engine because I've winterized it and the seacock is closed. Across on this side, we have the fuel gauge, the engine hours indicator. We have a connection here for a large searchlight that we have, which we connect at night, the switch for the floodlight that I showed you earlier to light up the mainsail, and a connection for the wired control for the anchor windlass. We mainly use a wireless control for the anchor windlass, so you can wander about and control the anchor. We have an EPIRB which was new in 2016, that also has a hydrostatic release on it, and then two gas locker homes, buns I suppose they're called. The active one here has a solenoid on it, so it's controlled, switched on and off from down below. In the cockpit we have two large lockers. This one on the port side, as you can see, is the home to all our ropes, and we've got the same on the other side, full of all sorts. And then at the back of the boat we have the lazarette, which in the winter is full of rubbish, but when we're sailing, houses all our fenders. In the lazarette we've got a cooling unit for the air conditioning, which is in the aft cabin. In there as well is the Eberspacher hot air heating. As I mentioned on the website, that will need servicing. We've never used it. The steering rod here is solid. We have no cables or chains to be breaking. It connects directly from a quadrant under here down directly to that rod, directly to the rudder stock, and next to it you have the control arm for the autopilot. On the sugar scoop at the back of the boat there is another locker that houses the kedge anchor and 50 metres of rode, swim ladder, and all our fins and snorkels and masts, etc. There's a passerelle which was new at the beginning of 2020, which we, when we're using it, connect to the ropes that normally control the davits. The davits you can see here is where we house the dinghy when we're at sea. Oh, and there's the dinghy. The dinghy is currently waiting for its winter service. It's got a 15 horsepower Mercury Sea Pro 2-stroke engine, cruises about 18-19 knots. The dinghy is, I think, 3.2 meters long. It's hyperlon, so it doesn't degenerate in the hot sun of the Caribbean and the Mediterranean. I'll just do some shots from the shore. Not sure how well they'll turn out. The Bimini was new in 2017, and you can see a pocket up in the top of the Bimini there, which is where we house the life ring. some more shots in the cockpit. Got rope lockers here leading back from the rope clutches, self-tailing winch on the starboard side, more clutches, more rope locker, self-tailing winch on the port side, and a non-self-tailing, the only non-self-tailing one we have, which takes the main sheet on the port side. And just up here we have a 12 volt plug socket and the connection for the foghorn, which runs off the VHF radio should you need to sound your foghorn signals. It plugs in there and away it goes. I'll show you when we get down below, but as you can see here there are two hatches above the main bed which open up into the cockpit to give some ventilation. Okay, so let's go down below.